Good evening. I'm Carter Callender, and welcome to Lefts and Rights. It seems today like everyone has a lot of lefts, but everyone deserves rights. We start today in Washington. Not about the Russia investigation, but rather, it's the women's rights protest. Our reporter Mia Krev has been there since 7 this morning, observing everything that has been taking place. Mia?
Hey Carter, so today is the women's rights protest, as you can see. The protest began in 1848 when a few women gathered together and discussed how America recently got rights from Britain, yet women seemed to be out of the picture. A simple conversation between 4 women sparked this entire revolution, and rightfully so. Today we will interview Miss Tassa Louise Bernadette Winnenhofer Brennan about the rights she is fighting for.
I'm here fighting for my parents, my friends, my children, and any generation after that, to ensure that they will have the rights and live in a world where they have these rights. This issue is extremely prevalent because nearly 50% of women feel inferior at their own jobs in comparison to their male coworkers at the same exact position. I know. In addition to this, almost 60% of women have faced some sort of sexual harassment. This can include touching or, you know what I'm saying, within their own workplaces. These numbers are unacceptable.
I agree. A change must take place. Anything else to add, Tassa?
I just think this is an issue that should be recognized and not thrown to the side. Many believe once women gained the rights to vote in 1919, it's almost 2019, or women were able to become like a householder and own their own property, the issue was simply resolved like that. But this is not the case whatsoever. There's so much discrimination towards women, yet this is America? Land of the free and right? I don't think so. We are fighting for everyone because women's rights are human rights. Join the fight to end gender inequalities.
I agree as well. This is an issue that must be fought for. As Pope Francis, the face of the church, has said, the church is woman. She is a woman married to Jesus Christ. She is her bridegroom, who is Jesus Christ. I hope this does not elude you. The church speaks highly of women and her precious nature. Women's rights and the fight for them are a constant fight, but a much needed fight. Now back to you,
Yes,
Carter.
thank you, Mia. After the break, we will be discussing the implications of discrimination in voting. We'll be right back.
When I was growing up, girls just didn't run in public.
No one on my all-boys team would pass to me.
Dad told me I couldn't be a boxer. He said I was too small.
There was a guy who tried to spit on me and then push me out of his way.
There comes a point where you have to be sure of yourself. People aren't used to women being so passionate. It scares them.
One day, I just said it doesn't matter what other people think.
I'm a fashion model who can dunk.
I'm a girl. That doesn't mean I have to wear a skirt.
Doesn't mean I can't get all fired up. They used to say that girl is crazy.
But then I just kept winning.
I didn't set out to dominate. I just did.
Somebody's got to be the best. So why not me?
Welcome back to Lefts and Rights. Here we have Alec Roberts, and with him we dive right into the conversation about women's voting rights and the controversy surrounding it. Alec, what would you say is the biggest accomplishment women have achieved during their fight for rights?
I would say that their biggest achievement would be that they gained the right to vote. In 1919, 15 allowed to vote in all elections, while 21 states restricted them to vote in only certain things. The other 12 states did not allow women to vote at all.
Wow, that is amazing. They came such a long way from not being able to vote at all to slowly pushing and fighting their way back to being able to vote. Where did the United States rank amongst other countries in allowing women to vote?
The United States were late to the party. There were 24 other countries that granted women the right to vote before the United States did.
How did the women celebrate their successful fight to gain the right to vote?
Well, each year on August 26th, we recognize the day as Women's Equality Day. The day is to commemorate the passage of the 19th Amendment, the Women's Suffrage Amendment added to the U.S. Constitution, which granted women the right to vote in 1920.
Thank you, Alec, for that report. From women's voting rights to voting rights in general, we shift our focus to the case of the case of Shelby County v. Holder of 2013. The result of this case ended up with the Supreme Court appealing parts of Sections 4 and 5 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So what does all that mean exactly? Well, Jeremiah chapter 29 verses 5 through 6 state that voting is one way that we can obey God's command to seek the good of those around us and our nation as a whole. The very nature of that way to obey God's command is threatened by the outcome of Shelby County v. Holder. You see, Sections 4 and 5 of this previously mentioned Voting Act made sure that states could not create laws to restrict certain citizens from voting unless approved by the Supreme Court. That approval process is now obsolete, and states are now allowed to change laws as they please with the support of their own internal government officials. Whether or not you think this is a good thing is ultimately left up to you. I only ask for you to remember, if we hold ourselves to be a great democracy, but we also allow our elections to, in a sense, be regulated to this degree, how much of a democracy are we? We'll be right back.
On Tuesday, November 8th, this country will make one of the most important
decisions in its history.
You have a chance.
You have an obligation
to be a part of that decision.
You might think it's not important. You might think you're not important.
But that's not true.
And the only way we can prove that to you is by having lots of famous people.
Lots of famous people.
Lots and lots of famous people.
Just a shit ton of famous people.
Repeating how important.
How important it is. Register.
vote.
There's so many famous people.
Welcome back to Lesson Rights. Our final story takes place here in Northeast Ohio. We have educators Mia Svilagoy and Kathleen Z. Emba. They're here with us to explain the issues of injustices in education. However, before we explain these issues, we need to understand the rights that everyone has in education. Maria, could you help us understand this a little more?
Everyone has the right to equal education, no matter race, gender, location, or religion. In the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it states that education is a right due to everyone. Our government needs to protect this right to guarantee the best possible lives for the people. Not only should they protect these rights, but they need to fulfill it by helping provide the means to education in private and public schools.
I completely understand. Kathleen, I understand that you're an educator at a Catholic school, namely, what is it again?
Lake Catholic.
Never heard of it. Where is it?
Notre Dame Cathedral Latin School. It's in Northeast Ohio.
Oh yeah, I heard that NECL is a great school. Excellent academics, phenomenal athletics, and great people. Anyways, you work at Lake Catholic. Do you think the principles of Catholic education shine through that school?
The Catholic faith teaches that everyone should have access to an equal, faith-filled education, if that is what they want. They also should be able to practice their faith throughout the school day. Lake Catholic aims to do this through a strong athletic program. However, the school you mentioned earlier, Notre Dame Cathedral Latin School, is very good at incorporating their faith into the daily lives of students, either during the school day or with extracurriculars.
Thank you for that clearly impartial insight. Now that we understand the basic rights of education, would either of you care to explain some of the injustices in education right now?
Many injustices involve gender and money issues. Many countries across the world don't have the money to supply basic materials, and even the needs to have a school in certain places. This is a major issue, because larger countries have the responsibility to help less fortunate countries. As for gender issues, education is a right that everyone has, but in some places, women are stripped of their right to education and only have the right to their primary years of school, and don't get the opportunity to go on to high school.
I agree with that. Another major problem is injustice based on location within the United States. In many states, large city public schools receive less funding than suburban schools. This means students who go to school in the city get a worse education due to lack of funding. There are also tends to be smaller high school graduation rates for students in the cities. This is a complete injustice because there should be equal opportunities in school, no matter where the students live.
Thank you both for these eye-opening statements. Is there anything else that either of you would like to add?
No, thank you for having me.
I agree. Nothing else I need to say, but thank you for inviting us here to talk.
You're both very welcome anytime. We'll see you right here back after the break.
We know that education is one of the surest ways to end poverty In fact, for every year people are educated, their earnings increase by 10%. Educated women are more likely to have educated and healthy children. And educated families weather economic crisis and natural disasters better. The truth is, no country has ever succeeded in the long run without investing in its people. But for many, it isn't as simple as just going to school. Today, 250 million children don't know how to read, even though many have been to school. The good news is, we know what can be done to boost learning. Young children need a head start with good nutrition and stimulation from people around them, so they arrive at school ready to learn. All children need basic math and language skills. Parents and teachers must also help them to think, communicate, create, and connect. Later, technical institutes and universities should equip graduates with knowledge and skills for jobs. And learning must continue through life.
Welcome back to the final segment of Lefts and Rights. Thank you for watching tonight. I hope you learned a lot about the rights of women, of workers, and of students. Remember to turn all lefts into the rights people deserve. Until next week, I'm Carter Callender.